Here's where you could make small adjustments today, not waiting for reform. Hey, tech company, I know this is how you operate. If you made these three small adjustments, they would have a better chance of buying you. And like
small sort of incremental steps, just, hey, take a little bit of a trust fall forward.
The ones that succeed the most have buy-in in the organization all the way up to the board. The board's usually where it starts getting wonky on these tech companies. So, but what we see a lot is, hey, we hired a federal sales, like a VP of federal sales, and they're on an island and they're off to the races, and they're going to come back and they're going to tell you all the things we just talked about, and you're not going to believe them, right? You're like, that we can, our software is special. I know you're saying the government's hard, but we're special enough. It's going to be different this time. It's not. It's just not. So some of it starts with, hey, let's just level set on expectations on what is it you're trying to accomplish with the government market. You know, if your VC is expecting you to punch out and sell in a year, this might not be the place. But right.
Yeah.
But if you really want to go capture, I mean, it's large dollars, it's more secure dollars in an economic downturn, which is why
it's a pretty sticky market if you can punch into it.
Yeah. Once you get past the moat with the crocodiles, that castle's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But we have had companies that applied to our program, like, we need to see $3 million in revenue in under 6 months. And like, you're going to see $0 revenues in under 6 months. No, that's not how this game works. So some of it's starting there, but then the biggest challenge is the companies that actually understand that most folks in the organization should have an understanding of the market are going to do really well. So what do I mean? If you just have a VP of federal and they go to their marketing team and they're like, I need to market to the government, it's a little bit different, and they tell them to pound sand, we see that all the time, it's not going to work. So how does the marketing team need to think a little bit different? How you're pricing your product commercially might totally hose you on the government side. Or if you don't understand that you start slinging discounts, you're going to get yourself sideways. Like, let's just get that on lock. We know the market's harder. You can't just charge more for the hell of it. Let's talk about that. Let's talk to the engineering team, right? You have to meet compliance. This is where you guys play. And how do we do that quickly? And how do we make sure that we're continuously up to speed on like all the requirements that get in the way in the government market? But don't, a VP of federal walking in like, I'm going to sell to the IC, and it's never talked to their IT team about where the tech stack is, you're dead on arrival too.
Yep. So yeah, it's funny though to hear you bring that up, because what we've seen as well is, we've run into a number of little large, unicorn sort of status enterprise SaaS companies that have, we always make the joke, it's like the 2-man band on the Fed team. And it really is around expectations and just reality on resources, and making sure that, whether it's the executive leadership team or the board or whatever, is aware and is accepting and making a commitment that they'll deploy those resources in support of that team. Or you meet some really sad people trying to sell tech from those companies.
I mean, and they ultimately end up laying off their entire federal team here if they don't understand some of that.
Yep.
And, I think it's, you see some really sad, I just pictured a corner of like VPs of emerging tech just sucking their thumbs and crying in the corner.
Yeah, but I mean, think about too, right? Like, I think part of it is, part of it's like an actual national security issue, not to overstate it, but if you can't find ways to marry this up, you're creating, or you're making the boogeyman that like, hey, DOD is not an actual viable market for commercial tech. You're making the boogeyman real, which it's the same thing. Like, if 3 people say it, it makes it true. But if we are not finding ways to communicate across those constituencies and have meaningful conversations and manage expectations on both sides, it's really, really challenging for the broader national security, innovation-based, tech-based to actually move forward. And that's where I'm super interested on, like, as you're looking at those two, like, what are ways we can be thinking about how to bring them together? So if you were the mediator, sort of what's that look like? Because you guys are at that really unique position in the market.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of things. I mean, one, it is always really um, fascinating when you bring, let's say we bring together a round table of tech companies and we introduce every rank, every function, and we're very clear this is not for contracts, this is for kind of market research. But the eye-opening experience that is for government folks of just, I didn't even know the art of the possible because it's so freaking hard to keep up with the pace, right?
Yep.
Um, but I think more folks in the government getting out and seeing the tech is important. I don't want innovation theater where you're just, tech petting zoos, right? Unless you're very clear, like about what the company can expect. But right now we're still relying on the contracting staff to do this market research in a lot of cases. And I can tell you, I used to do that job. I had to check the box on the market research, and you know what I did? I Googled it. So, like, heaven forbid, if I would say, artificial intelligence, do they have a government landing page? Nope. Okay, not viable. Out, because I didn't know any better at that time.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
now I'm teaching people not to do my past sins, right? Like, but that's part of it. But then if we can help on all those levers, say, okay, here's the business model that these companies have to operate under. Here's where you could make small adjustments today, not waiting for reform, so that you're making it easier to get them in. Let's start doing this. Hey, tech company, I know this is how you operate. If you made these three small adjustments, they would have a better chance of buying you. Let's and like
small sort of incremental steps. Just, hey, take a little bit of a trust fall forward.
Totally. And I know that sounds simple, but the other big thing is it's actually we put a big reliance, I think, right now, and the talk is around these innovation hubs, and they have to be the ones that are engaging with the non-traditionals. When I started Dcode, DIUX 1.0 didn't exist, right? And the idea was I can hack acquisitions in a normal program, a program that's already, a program of record. Just let me at it, and I'll teach the company how to go have that conversation, and we're gonna jam that tech in. That's how it used to be. So that's still a way, right? So I don't want an over reliance on the innovation hubs being the sole groups trying to bring it in and scale it. But man, if you plan from day one on where that thing needs to go and start having the conversation with the innovation catchers, the world of difference it would make.